Welcome, Glenn, to the Toronto International Film Festival Year 35 and our Raindance event here.
Fantastic.
Tell us a little bit about your current projects and what you've been working on.
So in the last little while I'm working on a bunch of residential projects, a couple of commercial project restaurants, potentially a hotel that'll be up north of Caledon. It's been a lot of fun and really interesting and unusual.
Now, you're a man who has to possess a lot of skills because you're working with filmmakers and directors, actors and designers, and of course the general public as well.
Yeah.
What's that been like?
I mean, it's always great working with people who understand what you do, and so certainly in the world of film, everybody understands what it is that you do, and everybody has a very clear role. When you're working with just the general public, as much as I love the general public, you included.
Thank you.
It can be more difficult because they don't necessarily understand exactly what it is that you're trying to do, and often you're talking about things that don't exist yet. So if you're doing something that's bespoke, for instance, you're really making a description of something that has yet to be made, and so you're kind of having to describe it in a way that they either understand or don't understand. And then you end up, if they really don't understand, then you have to do renderings and things that help so that you can show them a picture of this thing that doesn't yet exist.
Right, and of course you're trying to convey the image, but you don't want to give it all away at the same time, so you've got that sense of surprise there as well.
When it all happens. And inevitably, you can never completely translate in a two-dimensional image what a three-dimensional object is going to look like when you finally see it. And that, I suppose, is one of the interesting things about film, is they're taking, certainly in terms of film design and set design, you're taking a lot of three-dimensional spaces and turning them into a two-dimensional medium. And how that works is completely different. So often, I'm sure you know, things get moved around because how it looks on camera and how it looks in reality don't necessarily mesh. So you're putting things together in a way that they make sense in a two-dimensional image.
Absolutely. And then you've got the needs of the client. And is it true that everyone thinks they're a designer? Everyone thinks they know best?
Well, aren't you a designer?
Well, absolutely. And I was going to say, listen, I think we're designing this interview pretty well.
We're doing a fantastic job.
We are.
Everybody has a sense. The thing is that everybody has done something in design. Even if it was your bedroom when you were 6 and your mother let you pick the color, or your room at university, or whatever it is, your first apartment, you cobble things together. And everybody lives in space. We're continually in restaurants like the one we're in now, or you're in an apartment, you're in a hotel, and you're always interacting with the three-dimensional space. So people begin to feel as though they understand those things. I think as people begin to execute it on their own, they find that they're either wildly successful or they're a horrible failure. And really the point of design is to execute what it is that the client ultimately wants to be in. The difficulty is that they don't always understand how to take the images that are in their head and translate them into a space that they live in. So even the shopping process can be really difficult, because what seems like a perfectly good-sized table in a 40,000 square foot showroom, when you get it home, you realize, wow, it takes up my whole condo, so we're going to have to work around the table for everything. And if you spend a lot of money on that, the process of doing it many times is way more time-consuming and way more costly than just saying, I'll hire somebody who knows what they're doing.
Right, and you know exactly what you've been doing. You've been doing it for many years. You've put a lot of effort into getting your own signature style, and also your own training as well, and learning your craft. How important is that? Because we've got Raindance here who are developing and mentoring filmmakers through their programs. How important is it to learn what it is that you do when you're doing it?
There's nothing, there's a lot of really great mentoring programs in every facet of really life, but in terms of having someone who can just, or perhaps better said, so often the things that you learn in school, when you actually try to apply them, you realize, oh, in theory this works really well, but in practice there are these little stumbling blocks. And you can either, go along and make those mistakes on your own. Certainly in terms of film, it can be really costly to make those mistakes. If you have someone who is able to say to you, 15 years ago we tried this thing, and what really works well is if you shoot it from this angle, or you get up here, you have the actor do this as opposed to do that, or set the space up like this as opposed to that, and you'll end up with what it is that you're after in a more expeditious and cleaner kind of way, as opposed to doing it the way that you're about to do it, because I've already done that. So having someone to mentor you through the process is just eminently helpful. I mean, as an analogy, if you were going to climb a mountain, wouldn't you want a Sherpa? Because they've already done it 375,000 times, and they can say, yeah, that rock is a little bit shaky, and that's where people fall down, so step over here. And that is the idea of having a mentor, and what makes that program like this one such a smart one to be involved with for any filmmaker, for anyone in any profession, really.
Absolutely. Now we know Hollywood to be absolutely supreme as far as reinventing, redesigning, and redoing the sequel, for example. Is that the same with design? Do we see a lot of fads coming back and disappearing and then being resurfaced and rehashed again?
Absolutely. I mean, currently, if you look at mid-century, 60s, late 50s to early 70s, but really the mid-60s, all of that style is back again. You see it in clothing, you see it in furniture, absolutely. You see it in even wood tones. We're now back to using that sort of teak color that was very popular in the 60s. So sometimes when I'm working with an older client, and we make a proposition of what it's going to look like, I say, I threw all that out 20 years ago, and yeah, the style is slightly different in the same way that, clothing styles change, but never really change completely. If you look at fashion now, and one of the interesting things I think about fashion and design is it used to be that design was always a little bit behind fashion. Fashion has, a market that's in the spring and the fall, and so you see all of those new color trends, new styles, and all that kind of stuff, and it would happen, and then about 2 years later, the design industry, in terms of that styling, would catch up. Now, because of the internet and the speed with which information travels, it's almost vertically integrated. So the same moment that you're seeing a specific color, we might be seeing a lot of greens, purples, and turquoises now. As the summer is coming to a close, those colors will change, but you saw that in home decor and in clothing almost at exactly the same time. So I think that absolutely things get completely recycled, and certainly if you look over history, antiques seem to stay forever and ever, and there are some classic designers, if you look at Miller, or you look at Corbusier, or those kinds of people, there are lines in their collections that have just lasted forever and ever, never go away. Things that were older in their lines sort of come back again stylistically. The egg chair, which we haven't seen since really the 60s, all back with vengeance.
And it seems new. They've made it even better than it was before.
Indeed they have. I mean, the other great thing is that, for some people, they didn't get to see it the first time because they're only 27. So, this is the first time for them. For some people who are more like, 77, they're going, oh, this whole thing again, I saw this already twice go by, So that absolutely happens.
Glenn, thanks so much for joining us today. We want you to have a fabulous time here at the film festival. Go enjoy yourself at Raindance Canada.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Great. Thank you very much.